Jim, welcome to Mindvalley.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you everyone for joining us. I'm so excited about this because we're going to talk about one of the most important topics. I can't even imagine something more important, this thing called meta-learning and learning faster and improving your most valuable superpower, which is between your ears, called your brain. And it's exciting.
Absolutely. So I want to give you guys a quick idea of why having Jim join Mindvalley was something that was so important to us. This year, we added a new category to our plate of learning categories in Mindvalley, and that new category is called meta-learning. Meta-learning, simply put, is learning how to learn. See, you can study all of these different aspects of personal growth, but all of us sometimes face this limitation where there's only so much we can remember, there's only so much we know how to apply. And so we thought, well, what if we could teach the ultimate skills, the skills that actually expand your capacity for learning? See, Jim, you have a famous quote which I love to share. Jim says that we often think of our learning capacity like a shoe size. Our shoe size is fixed. You can't increase the size of your shoe, but that's not true with your brain. Yeah. With meta-learning, you can increase the capacity of your brain to learn, to remember, to retain, to apply. And just think about what this would do for every other thing you're learning through Mindvalley. In fact, every other aspect of your life, which is why meta-learning is the new and one of the most significant new categories on Mindvalley, and Jim is one of our first amazing instructors in this category.
Yeah, the way I put it is this, is if I was a magical genie and I could support you to help learn any subject or any skill faster, if you wanted to become a master at something, whether it's Mandarin or music or martial arts or it's marketing, what would you choose? And I want you to think about that as we're going through this conversation, because we're going to teach you some of the fundamentals to learning faster. And so if you could learn any subject or skill, what would you choose? And it's kind of like when we're talking about a genie, somebody says like, hey, if you get one wish, what would you choose? And people are like, oh, I would wish for more wishes, right? And so that's the equivalent, that's the way I look at it, that if somebody says you can learn any subject or skill faster, what would it be? For me, it would be learning how to learn. Learning how to learn, because if you can learn how to learn quickly, you can apply that towards anything in personal development or anything in your life.
So before we learn anything, we want to learn how to learn.
Right.
Likewise, if a genie gives you one wish, what you want to wish for is more wishes, you sneaky bastard. That's basically how we want to approach the situation.
Yeah, I mean, it's really that advantage. And I can't imagine in today's modern day society full of overload and distraction where knowledge is not only power, knowledge is profit, right? The faster you can learn, the faster you can earn. There's no more important skill than your ability to outthink, to outlearn, to outperform. And so I'm really excited about this because nowadays, nobody who's watching this, you're not paid for your muscle power, you're paid for your mind power, right? It's not your brute strength, it's your brain strength. The challenge is your brain doesn't come with an owner's manual, and it's not always user-friendly, but it's your most valuable wealth-building asset for everything.
So let me ask you this question, Jim. We all know, and I'm sure you guys will agree, if you can improve your capacity to learn, every aspect of your life improves. Because when you can learn faster, you can improve your career. You can improve your ability to retain and absorb information, and thus you grow so much faster. But why is it that most of us don't learn how to learn? And then we end up going through our traditional education systems thinking that our brains are fixed in some dimension.
Yeah, I think that a lot of things that we learn is like when people see me on stage, they'll see me memorize like 100 people's names or 100 words or 100 numbers forwards and backwards. And I always tell people I don't do this to impress you, I do this to express to you what's really possible. Because the truth is, every single person who's watching this right now, you can do it too. You just weren't taught. If anything, we were taught a lie. We were taught a lie that somehow our intelligence, our potential, our power is somehow fixed, like you mentioned, like our shoe size.
Right.
But we've discovered more about the human brain more in the past 20 years than the previous 2,000 years. And what we found is we grossly are underestimating our own capabilities.
And Jim is probably the leading mind in the world right now in terms of teaching people how to expand their brain. I want to share one really interesting story about you, Jim. And Jim just got off the set for the new X-Men movie, where he was training the cast of the X-Men to improve their ability to learn so that they could read lines and remember their lines far better. Jim has certainly taken off in Hollywood. He's training many A-listers to improve their capacity to learn. Not only that, if you actually follow Jim on Instagram, go check this out right now, Instagram.com/Jim Kwik, right? And just check out the incredible minds in the world who are there on his Instagram. From ex-presidents of the United States to Will Smith to the cast of many superhero films to Elon Musk and Bill Gates and the founders of Google, he's helping some of the greatest minds on the planet learn better. And that's one, I guess, that is testament to the skills that you're about to bring to our audience.
And my main message for everybody who's watching here is that I'm nothing special. People don't know, but I grew up with learning challenges and learning difficulties. At the age of 5, I had a very bad accident. I had a head trauma, brain injury, and I just didn't understand things. Teachers would have to repeat themselves over and over and over again. I had no focus, and I know that's an issue for a lot of people who are watching this. I had a very poor memory, which is a challenge. You learn something and then forget it the next day. And it actually took me an extra 3, almost 4 years learning to learn how to read.
Right, you were known as the kid with the broken brain.
Yeah, at the age of 9, actually, think about this. A teacher pointed to me, thinking I wasn't paying attention or maybe not smart enough to understand, talking to another adult, saying, "That's the boy with the broken brain." And at that age, you're very impressionable. That shapes your identity and who you are. And so I was overcoming, all these challenges. I had to work harder, and maybe some people could identify with this, that you're working hard, you're doing the effort, but the reward's not there. Mm-hmm. And you're wondering, like, that's not fair. It's like, why do I have to work 2, 3 times harder as everybody else not to get the results? And I could promise everyone who's watching this, we're gonna give you some real tangible tips and techniques on how to learn faster and unlock what we call your super brain, so that you could have greater productivity, greater performance, and also greater levels of profit, because obviously we live in this knowledge economy, and also peace of mind. Because I'm not talking about learning faster like frantic fast. I'm talking about having a confidence and a calm where you can absorb information as close as you could get to like Limitless or like The Matrix, right? And I think it's the most important skill, so I'm excited about this.
So remember that scene from The Matrix where Neo plugs himself in and this giant thing goes and attaches itself to his brain and he downloads new skills? Well, we're not going to be doing that, but this is about as close as you can get.
Yeah, and so you will learn how to learn, and basically you can know Kung Fu. And Kung Fu really is just this level of mastery in this journey, and that's what we're on this quest together. And that's the best thing about this, is that you're not alone. If you're struggling or suffering with too much to learn, too little time, I mean, who doesn't have books on the shelf they haven't read yet, right? You go online, you buy all these books, and they sit on your shelf, and as Lisa Nichols talks about, it becomes shelf help and not self-help. Mm-hmm. How many people get more than 10 emails a day? I mean, people are getting hundreds of emails. We're drowning in information, but we're starving for real practical wisdom. And so information overload and distraction and this digital economy that we're in, I mean, it's rewiring our brains, and it's really taking away from our productivity and our peace of mind. And that's why I think these conversations are so important.
So I want to share a quick story of how Jim Kwik's work helped me and why I'm so excited to have Jim in this masterclass. So we started planning this about 3 months ago. And 1 month ago, I was in Munich in Germany doing a seminar. And so after day 1 at the seminar, we had 300 people in the room, and people came with their books, The Code of the Extraordinary Mind, for me to sign. And as I wrote down the name in their book, I used Jim's technique to attach their name to the face. Now, the very next day in the seminar, when people would raise their hand to ask questions, I could call them out by name because I'd used Jim's technique to remember out of 300 people, 100 names. And instantly, everyone in the room was impressed and they were mystified. And my ratings for the seminar went higher than I normally get because everybody felt recognized. Yeah. Everybody felt important because I, as the speaker, had remembered their name. Yeah. And guys, it took me 10 minutes to learn that technique, and that technique completely changed my life. Now, what we're going to do at the end of this seminar, that technique is one of the powerful techniques that Jim is going to be teaching in his new course with Mindvalley called Superbrain. That technique itself, basically pays for the entire course. But we're actually going to give you a gift, and at the end of this masterclass, we're going to teach you that technique in 10 minutes. How about that? So stay till the end because we're going to give you that name recognition technique, and this is so going to change the way you interact in terms of business, networking, and you interact with people in your life.
Yeah, and I really want to thank everybody who's really showing up for this. I believe success comes down to 2 things. Showing up, 50% of it is just showing up, but the other half is playing full out. So make sure you take notes, that you really focus and be present here, because what you're about to learn will absolutely change your life. I want this to be the most valuable next few minutes of your time.
So first, Jim, I want you to tell the story behind this picture, because as a geek, this story always gives me shivers.
Okay, so a few years ago, I get a call, and this, going back to remembering names, is so important. I speak a lot, and I got to meet somebody and saying hi to everybody afterwards, and I remember this person's name. And remembering names, again, I don't want to underscore this. It is the #1 business etiquette networking skill there is, because how are you going to show somebody you're going to care for their future, their family, their health, their finances, anything that you're selling them, if you don't care enough just to remember their name, right? And so I remember this person's name, and that led to me speaking at 20th Century Fox for this chairman of 20th Century Fox and his executive team. And so I did my very best talk, and I don't know what it was, because I was in this playful state. It was a Friday, and walking into the boardroom, you saw like pictures of like Avatar and Star Wars. It put me in that state, right? And what happened was, it was my very best presentation, and afterwards the chairman looks at me and says, Jim, I want to give you a tour of the 20th Century lot, and it's a closed lot in Hollywood. And when we were walking around the film sets, I noticed there was this movie poster of Wolverine, and I was like, oh, I can't wait for that new movie to come out. And he picks up his phone, and 5 minutes later, I'm in the Fox Theater with 3D glasses watching Hugh Jackman fight all these super ninjas. I mean, it was amazing. And afterwards, he's like, Jim, how was the movie? And I was like, oh, it was so good, thank you so much. And it's like, you don't know this, but I grew up with learning challenges, and I couldn't read as a kid. And I taught myself how to read by reading comic books. That was my whole infatuation with comic books and superheroes. And I was telling him, I was like, my favorite comic books growing up were actually Wolverine and the X-Men, because not because they were the most powerful, it's because they didn't fit in. And how many of us don't fit in? You know, growing up with the boy with the broken brain, I didn't have any friends, I wasn't learning like everybody else, I was very isolated and shy. And the highlight, when I was little, I read in the comic book that the school for the gifted, right? Kind of what you're building with Mind Valley, what you're building with Quest.
Professor Xavier's school for the X-Men.
Exactly. Where they train all the superheroes is actually in Westchester, New York, and that's where I grew up. And so I was telling him this is true. When I was 9 years old, I used to ride my bicycle around my neighborhood trying to look for that school because I wanted to run away from home. And I wanted to find my superpowers. I wanted to find my super friends. And I'm telling this to Chairman of Fox. He's like, Jim, I didn't know you like superheroes. Do you want to go to Comic-Con? And you know what Comic-Con is?
Right. Comic-Con is it was one of the biggest events, most popular events in America. Everybody, thousands of people come together to celebrate comics.
Exactly, and they dress up, and it's really wild. And it's in San Diego. And I was like, when's Comic-Con? He's like, it's today, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And he was like, do you want to go? And I was like, and I go from a 9-year-old to a 99-year-old. And this is a lesson in accelerated learning because it's not chronological age. It's the age of our mind and the age of our heart, right, our spirit. And I start thinking about all these excuses because I was a kid and I'm thinking, no, now I'm 99. It's like, oh, how do I get to San Diego on a Friday? Oh, I have all these meetings here in LA. Oh, I have nothing to wear. Oh, there's gonna be traffic. Oh, I have to wait on lines. And it's so interesting how adults talk their way out of opportunity, right? And so I always tell people, if you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them, right? People are always saying, oh, I'm not smart enough, or I'm not good enough, oh, I'm just not, my memory is not good, I'm getting too old. And again, if you argue for your limits, you get to keep them. So he's looking at me, he's like, Jim, do you want to go or not? I'm going tomorrow. I was like, oh, the chairman of Fox is going, I want to go with you. So the next morning, he picks me up, Saturday morning, and we go, and instead of driving, we get on his plane, and I swear to you, Vishen, the entire cast of X-Men is on that plane. I mean, think about, I'm 9 years old in my mind now again, and there's literally, I don't even see like Patrick Stewart and Hugh Jackman, I see like, I see Wolverine and Professor X, and I'm sitting between Jennifer Lawrence and Halle Berry, and we're going to Comic-Con, right? And we go and we spend an incredible day together, and on the way back, the chairman of Fox is like, how was your day? I was like, this is the best day ever, thank you so much. He was like, I have something else for you. I'm like, I don't want anything else, what can I do for you? He was like, Jim, they really loved you, how would you like to go on set? I was like, what do you mean? He's like, we're filming the new X-Men movie in Montreal.
Wow.
Another 30 days, how would you like to go? I was like, oh, I've never been on set, I would love to go. What can I do for you? And he's like, Jim, just teach them what you taught us. Teach them how to unlock their superpowers. Teach them how to speed read their scripts, how to memorize their lines. And I was like, I can totally do that. The next morning, next Sunday, we're on what they call the X-Jet going to Montreal. And I got to share with my heroes. And I got to see them on set come alive.
Wow.
And when I got back home, that photograph was waiting for me. This photograph of me and the entire cast of X-Men. And even better than that, though, was this note from the chairman. And this is world class. Big heart. He says, Jim, thank you so much for sharing your superpowers with all of us. I know since you've been a child, you've been looking for your superhero school. Here's your class photo.
Wow.
And
Jim, what an incredible story.
I even get goosebumps even thinking about it. I call them truth bumps, and really that put me on this quest for how do we where's our superhero school? And that's why I love partnering with you with what we're doing, because when are often people having conversations around superpowers and genius and meta learning? I mean, all these skills that will give people greater levels of performance and peace of mind.
And it's funny that you say that, because if you were to ever walk across the Mindvalley office, you'll notice superheroes everywhere, superhero icons everywhere, even our t-shirts. I mean, this is inspired by the crest that superheroes wear on their chest. And it's because we have always also used that analogy. We think of ourselves as a school for superheroes to bring out to the world these superpowers that traditional education suppresses or doesn't really teach us, such as what you're about to talk about.
And that's the big challenge, because when I was going through all these learning difficulties, I thought school would help fix that. And I realized very quickly that school is a great place to learn what to learn, like math and history and science and Spanish, but there were 0 classes on how to learn. Right. How to think for yourself, how to focus and concentrate, how to be creative, how to solve problems, how to read faster, how to remember more. I always thought there's 3 R's in traditional education: reading, writing, arithmetic. But what about retention? What about recall? What about remembering? Socrates says learning is remembering. And the reason why it's so important in this digital age where you could get information online is, as entrepreneurs or as social activists or as parents or as students, your ability, your life is a reflection of your decisions, but you can only make quality decisions based on the information you remember, the knowledge that you remember. And I'll prove it to you. If you at home are watching this and you lost half of your memories, half of your life memories, half of your loved ones, half of the names, half the numbers, half of the words that you know, would you have the same quality of life? Of course not. But if you could remember that much more, how much more effective would you be? How much more productive? How much time would you be able to save? How much more can you make? It's exciting times.
I think we all underestimate just how much our lives will improve if we can improve that one thing, our ability to learn. So far you've learned the idea that your learning capacity is not something fixed, and that when you can expand this learning capacity, so many different dimensions of your life expand as well. Now let's get to the next lesson from Jim. And Jim, whenever I have a remarkable character like you sitting next to me, one of the things I love to understand, and I know the audience will love this as well, is to get a glimpse of your morning routine. What do you do to keep your learning capacity sky high and your brain fit in the morning? Let's take us through that routine.
Okay, so I believe first we create our habits, and then our habits create us back. And the most successful, effective individuals, they create empowering habits. But when's the last time we actually learned, or took a crash course on how to create habits or how to break bad habits? And the reason why they're so important on top of that is because a lot of people who are watching are suffering from mental fatigue. They're suffering from mental fog. It's like decision fatigue. They can't make any more good decisions. And part of the reasons why is because they've used up a lot of their energy first thing in the morning. So how do you get that right? Well, when I first wake up, I'm going to go through some of the first things that I do every single morning. And what's different about my morning routine is I really focus on how to jumpstart my most incredible superpower in the world, which is my brain. So everything I do in the morning is to optimize my mind so I can optimize the day. Because if you could win the morning, you could win the day. So the first thing that I do when I wake up in the morning is I remember my dreams. I remember my dreams. And the reason why is because a lot of people don't realize this, but when you're learning all day, your mind doesn't shut off at night. Mm-hmm. Your subconscious, your unconscious, your non-conscious is still working on solving those problems, integrating things, consolidating your short to long-term memory. And in fact, people don't know this, but some of the most remarkable inventions and work of art and science actually came through dreams. Like, for example, Mary Shelley came up with Frankenstein in her dreams. Wow. Yesterday by Paul McCartney came in his dream. The periodic table actually came from a chemist's dream. Elias Howe invented the sewing machine in his dream. The challenge is, what happens when you wake up? You had all these dreams at night, but most people what? They forget their dreams. So I walk people through a 6-step process on how to remember dreams. We actually cover it in the Quest program.
Oh, I see.
So I'm really excited about that. The second thing I do first thing in the morning is I make my bed. And it's kind of, you're like, Jim, why is that good for your brain? I do it for 2 reasons. Number one, I believe how you do anything is how you do everything, right? And you want to start your day with a win. It's the science of momentum, because success breeds success. And so take a minute, make your bed, make it excellent, and then carry that momentum throughout the day. The other reason why I do it is how good does it feel when you come home at night and you come back to a made bed, right? It's like you come back full circle back to success. The third thing I do, one of the things I do right away, is I brush my teeth. You're like, Jim, obviously, how's that good for your brain though? Everyone brushes their teeth. But here's the thing, I brush my teeth with the opposite hand. I brush my teeth with the opposite hand, because what the latest science is saying is, yes, there is a mind-body connection, that your thoughts affects your body, right? But what a lot of people don't realize is that your body affects your mind also. That using your body in certain ways actually activates different parts of your brain. That as your body moves, your brain grooves. So for example, brushing your teeth with the opposite hand or eating with the opposite hand is actually good for your brain. There's actually a study done at Oxford University saying jugglers have bigger brains. Learning to juggle actually creates more white matter. So juggling actually helps you to build better brains. It's amazing. So after that, what I do is I take a tall glass of water, because a lot of people don't realize this, but your brain and your body is like 70% water. And a lot of people, when they're mentally fatigued or they have fog, which a lot of people have, it's because they're dehydrated. And it's so simple. And notice everything I'm talking about doesn't cost any money. Right. And that's the best thing about it, right? You could do it and it's free. Your family could do it. Your friends could. Your team should be doing this also as well. So you hydrate because most people lose a lot of water when they sleep. And then from there, I take a cold shower. People are going to hate me. They're like, I was loving this guy up to this point, a cold shower. But I believe in cold therapy because it's a great way. We know that if you hit your knee, you put ice on it to reduce the swelling, to reduce the inflammation. Top athletes, they take ice baths. And I know speaking on stage at A-Fest with Wim Hof, right? Cold therapy is very important, right? And so what it does is it lowers inflammation in your body, so cold shower is good for that, and it resets your nervous system. And it's wonderful to have clarity of mind also. Right. By the way, also showering puts you into a theta state. A theta state is a relaxed state of awareness where you start being very creative. You notice that when you're in the shower, you come up with all these new ideas, all these ideas. And it's always when you can't write them down, which is another reason why people should join this quest, because it teaches you how to take mental notes and have things, instead of the tip of your tongue, on your mental fingertips, like right there. But showering, it puts you in a theta state, and that's the state of creativity. That's the state where Einstein would go into his thought experiments and come up with, all the science-based theories. And so it's very important to take showers. I took 6 showers just to prepare for this masterclass with you today. And then from there, I go and I actually make a brain tea. And I talk about some of the elements in my brain tea in our quest together, but it has things like gotu kola and ginkgo biloba and lion's mane and MCT. I put a little bit of honey, but it really activates my focus because we know that the foods you eat can either add to your focus and your memory, or it could detract. And that's something that we cover more in depth in the quest. And then from there, I actually, when I'm drinking my tea, I journal. And I know you like to journal a lot also. Right. I think some of the most, they do these studies with geniuses, and I'm not just saying IQ geniuses, artists and architects and actors and athletes. And it seems like 90% of them are keeping journals. And is it because that they're geniuses that they keep journals, or is it because they're writing and reflecting and journaling that makes them geniuses? And I have a very specific process of journaling. But one of the things I do is I look at, most people have a to-do list, but I also have a not to-do list. And I think some of the most effective people on the planet have a not to-do list, a growing, and their not to-do list is larger than their to-do list. Things like, notice the one thing I haven't talked about that most people do first thing in the morning, which is touch their phone. Right? The first hour of the day, most people want to touch their phone. And I can tell you, if you're watching this right now, you're a special soul. You're a special human being because you're interested in growing and you're interested in giving. That's the superhero way, right? You discover and develop your superpowers so you could go and help other people. But if you're touching your phone the first hour of the day, you're doing yourself a disservice because touching your phone and going through your phone first hour a day, it does 2 things. It rewires your brain for 2 things. Number 1, it trains you for distraction. And that's obvious, right? The other thing, the reason why you don't want to touch your phone first thing in the morning is because it trains you not only to be distracted, it trains you to be reactive. It trains you to be reactive. And you can't have a quality of life because what happens if you pick up your phone and you get an email and it puts you in a bad mood? And then you take that throughout your entire day. How can you have a quality of life and design your life with vision and with standards if you're just responding and replying to everybody's agenda and firefighting and all these things? So don't touch your phone the first hour of the day. Instead, though, in my journal, I'm writing the 3 things I want to accomplish personally and professionally. Like, what are the 3 things I need to do to be able to win that day? And I go through my whole process. And there are more things that I do. I make a brain power smoothie because I know in our quest I talk about my top 10 favorite brain foods, which is so important because, again, there are foods that detract from your focus, processed food, fried foods, and so on. But there's certain foods that are really good for your brain. So, for example, avocado, very good for your brain. Blueberries, or I call them brain berries, very neuroprotective. things like broccoli and coconut oil and eggs if your diet allows. Green leafy vegetables, good for your brain. And you should be writing these down if you don't have like this, the memory ability yet, because I think that's important. But then things like salmon, like wild salmon or sardines, if your diet allows also as well. Turmeric, really good for your brain because it lowers inflammation. That's that golden powder that gets everywhere. I would say also walnuts, very good for your brain. And it's interesting also, right? Walnuts, it looks like a brain. And it's kind of interesting in nature that there's a signature or a sign of nature that certain foods look like the organ or the body part it actually is nourishing. So for example, if you cut a carrot and you look at it, it looks like an eye, and it's good for the eyes and so on. So there's certain foods that are really good for your brain. Walnuts, another one. And also, I save the best for last, dark chocolate. Dark chocolate.
Yes.
The darker the chocolate, the more organic, really good for your brain. And anything because it puts you in also a good mood and creates endorphins, and anything that's good for your mood is going to be good for your
I
mind.
bet most of you were not excited when he said broccoli, but when he says dark chocolate, you guys are
Yes,
going,
and
you're writing it down.
and
now
it's
you
really
can start tomorrow.
And it's really great too because you could take all those things really conveniently and throw it into a blender and you have your brain power smoothie.
Right.
You have avocado, you have green leafy vegetables, you have your chocolate, throw some water in there, some coconut oil. I would avoid the salmon, but that's a brain power smoothie. And then from there I read because I believe that leaders are readers. Leaders are readers. And so reading, I would like to get people up to, and we talk about this in the program, 1 book a week. 1 book a week, because the average person reads about 2 books a year.
And you teach that in the program.
Yeah, we talk about specifically how to focus when you read, because a lot of people can't focus. They'll read a page in a book and get to the end and then just forget what they just read. Their mind wanders. And so they're losing so much time. And reading is very important because the average person processes information about 4 or 5 hours a day. Think about all the emails and the websites and the blogs and the books and the articles you're reading all day. But if you could just double your reading speed and you save 2 hours a day. What's 2 hours a day over the course of a year? Right. Or even if you save 1 hour a day, what's 1 hour a day over the course of a year? 365 hours. That's like, how many 40-hour work weeks?
That's amazing. You're really giving people their time back. You're giving people about 7 hours a week back.
Right, exactly. And that's 365 hours a year, which is 9 40-hour work weeks.
And that's just on doubling reading speed. But one of the things you're also saying, Jim, which is really, really, really important, is that most people don't understand just how important it is to practice these habits in the morning to take care of your brain. For example, if you skimp on, say, an hour or 2 of sleep, it's the equivalent of functioning on the next day at work, having consumed an entire glass of beer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But the reverse is also true. If you take the right nutrients in the morning, your productivity goes through the roof. So at Mindvalley, we've been doing experiments. And one of the experiments is I started experimenting with the type of high nutrient dosage that you're talking about, the smoothies with blueberries and MCT oil and all of these other things that we know is good for your brain. And I also started experimenting with nootropics. Nootropics are smart drugs. They are quite expensive. Sometimes you take anywhere from 2 to 6 of them a day. And I wanted to see what would give me the boost. Now, what I found is that the nootropics gave me a boost, but I found that the power smoothies gave me an equivalent boost without the side effects of the drugs. And so I was able to dramatically boost my focus, my functioning, my processing speed, my levels of energy in the day just by putting these nutrients in my body, the exact same recipes that you're suggesting here. So I want you guys to understand how important this is. You're adding several hours to your day just because of your renewed ability to think, to process, and to be productive.
Yeah, and the reason why I like these habits, the conversations we're having, especially the way that the Quest is designed, because it's meant to create routines for you, and you're using it every single day for, let's say, 30 or more days, and you create that habit. And again, first you create your habits, and then your habits create you.
Now, is exercise and meditation part of your morning routine as well?
Oh, absolutely. So I meditate every single morning also as well for about 20 minutes. I believe mindfulness training is very important because in order to have focus, in order to have clarity of mind, and to be able to solve problems, you want to go into those brainwave states. We call it alpha wave states. And so you can do that through disciplined breathing, visualization.
And I ask that because the good thing about the world today is all of us have been trained to understand that exercise was important in the 70s and 80s. We started learning that, right? Like jogging really started taking off in the 80s, aerobics in the 80s. Now in the 2000s, we started learning the importance of meditation. So many people here, and raise your hand if this is true for you, every morning you have a meditation practice and an exercise practice. Now what I started figuring out and adding to my life in the last 2 years, so I'm relatively new at this as well, is the power of brain practices, like what you're suggesting, taking care of your brain. So right now, today, if you want a full, well-rounded life, right? It's not just meditation, which is great for your soul, exercise, which is great for your body, but it's optimizing your brain states. And that is just great for your career and your life and your mental functioning. You got to have all three in the morning.
Yeah, I do some like 5 minutes of exercise first thing in the morning also. There was a study done, and then this is not my daily workout, but it's very important first thing in the morning to move your body.
Right.
So right after my brain smoothie and when I'm reading, I do like to read for about 20 minutes, I do just 5 minutes of like burpees or calisthenics or whatever I do, because whatever's good for your heart is going to be good for your head.
Right.
There was a study done at Appalachian State University where they tested people that did a few minutes exercise. They did it at 7 a.m., 1 p.m., and 7 p.m. And they found that the people who did it first thing in the morning, that activity, they slept better, they managed their weight better. It was so powerful. And so I would say, even if you can't do your full workout in the morning, just move. Because the brain evolved primarily, the number one function is to control our body movements. And so as your body moves, your brain grooves. So get that exercise
fantastic, Jim. So thank you. So that's a really key part of what I'm hoping you guys were taking down, because this itself shifts your life. And if you guys want to know the exact protocols and how to do all of this, don't worry, because you can always enroll in Mindvalley Super Brain Quest with Jim. It kicks off in a couple of weeks, and we're taking 2,000 people with Jim to train them to reinforce these habits and to train them on the science of improving their brain capacity and thus improving their productivity and their careers and their lives. So now we're going to go to the next bit, and this is really powerful stuff. You're going to learn about the 10 keys to a super brain, and there's a twist to this particular exercise, so pay close attention. Now, I also want you to know that at the end of this masterclass, we're going to add a bonus training for you guys. It's about 10 minutes. We're going to give you a snippet from the new Super Brain Quest with Jim Kwik, where you're going to learn the technique that Jim showed me on how to remember names and faces. And that was huge for me, because I actually have a brain issue. I've tested my brain, and I have a neurological issue that makes it hard for me to remember faces and to read nonverbal communication, right? It's something very common with programmers. And Jim helped me overcome that. And you're going to learn how to remember names and faces, and the applications for this in business and life are so huge. So stay tuned to the end.
Great. So there are 10 keys for unlocking your super brain. And these are the things that we talk about more in the quest, but I'm going to give them to you really fast. And what I want you to do is here. Do not write this down. I know you were taking notes up to this point, but I'm going to ask you as your super brain coach not to write this down, because I'm going to test you to see how many you remember. And then I'm going to teach you an ancient code of memory, a technique that dates 2,500 years ago on how to remember this. And you could apply this towards remembering facts, or even to be able to memorize a speech without using notes. So let's go into it. The 10 keys for unlocking your super brain. Number 1, a good brain diet. And that's obvious. You are what you eat. We talked about that a little bit. Number 2 is killing ants. Scientifically, killing ants is actually good for your brain. And when I mean ants, it stands for automatic negative thoughts, by Dr. Daniel Amen. He came up with that term. He's a big brain doctor in America. Number 3 is exercise. Exercise, because as we talked about, as your body moves, your brain grooves. Number 4 are brain nutrients, because if you don't get it from your diet, you supplement, because you might have learning challenges because you're short of vitamin B or omega-3s or so on. Number 5, a positive peer group. That's why a tribe and a community, friendships are so important, because it's not just your biological networks or your neurological networks, it's your social networks. And then after that, number 6 is a clean environment. A clean environment's good for your brain, because when your outside world is a reflection of your internal world. When you clean your desk or you clean your laptop, how much more focus do you have? How much better concentration do you have? Clarity of thought. Good. Number 7, this is a big one, sleep. Sleep. Because that's where you consolidate short to long-term memory. That's where you clean out the plaque in your brain that can lead to Alzheimer's and dementia. Sleep, very important. After that, you have brain protection. Brain protection. To have a super brain, you have to protect your brain. So wear a helmet. Number 9, this is a big one, new learnings. New learnings. You grow new brain cells, make new connections, neurogenesis, neuroplasticity through novelty. And novelty is very important. So always challenging your brain. And finally, number 10, stress management. One of the big supervillains out there is information overload and overwhelm and life stress and anxiety. When you're stressed, you create cortisol and adrenaline. It's good for fight or flight, but it shuts down big parts of your brain. So it's not good if you need to take a test. It's not good if you need to study. It's not good if you need to prepare for a meeting. It's not good if you have to give a speech in front front of a big group of people because it's going to make you forgetful. So those are the 10 keys. So take a minute and just write down as many as you remember of those 10 in order. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to memorize these 10 tips forwards and backwards. Here we go. One of the keys for greater memory is understanding the power of location, and how space evolved to be able to help us to store information around in our environment. And it evolved because as hunter and gatherers, we didn't need to know unnecessarily these words or these memorized numbers. We need to remember where things were. We need to remember where the enemy tribe was, where the clean water was, where the fertile soil was, where the food is, and so on. That was our survival. So we learned to store information around space. In fact, when you forget someone's name, what's the first question you ask? Where do I know that person from? Because we all know that content is king. And if content is king, then context is the kingdom. Context. And so the context gives you the content. So how do you use this? Let's take space that we're familiar with and use that as a mental filing system to store the information that we need to be able to remember in our day-to-day lives. And so we'll take it. So imagine tomorrow you have to give a talk on stage or at your office or at school, and you want to talk about the 10 keys for unlocking your super brain. This is how you would memorize it. You would take the first key and put it in the first place, the second key in the second place, the third key in the third place. By the way, if you've ever found yourself saying to yourself or in an argument talking to someone, in the first place this, in the second place that, in the third place, that languaging came from this ancient code of memory. Now, that's not being used. We're bringing it back with this quest, but the languaging is still there. So people are still talking that way. And so people would used to store information around like their apartment or around their home, and that's how they would remember it. So what I want you to do is take a place that you're very familiar with, which is our body. And we're going to take 10 places on our body, we're going to do it fast, and then we're going to put each of the 10 keys in each of those places. So for example, number 1 is top. So we could do this, we could all do this together. Touch the top of the head. So number 1 is top, and say it out loud. What's number 1? You say it out loud, top, good. That's your verbal memory, right? 2 is your nose, so touch your nose, good. 3 is your mouth. 4 are your ears, good. 5 is your throat, or your larynx here. 6 is your shoulders. 7, your collar. 8 are your fingers. 9 is your belly. And 10 is your seat, your rear end. All right, so those are the 10. Let's do it again together. 1 is top. 2 is nose. 3 is your mouth. 4 are your ears. 5 is your throat. 6 are your shoulders. 7 is your collar. 8 are your fingers. 9 is your belly. And 10 is your seat. Now, watch this. This is magic. Now we're going to take the 10 keys for unlocking your super brain. We're going to put number 1 in the first place. So the first key was a good brain diet. So I just want you to imagine a good brain diet on the top of your head. Now imagine it. And if you can't imagine it, imagine you can imagine it. And you can do this with your eyes closed if it's safe for you to be able to do that. Imagine a good brain diet of avocados and blueberries and salmon on the top of your head. And you're like, Jim, that's so childish. Who are the fastest learners? Right? Children engage their imagination, their creativity. They use more of their whole brain instead of their sort of left logical side, their verbal side. They use more of it. And so number 2 is what? Is your nose. And coming out of your nose, I want you to imagine now, I want you to imagine they're ants, because that's going to remind you of killing ants, automatic negative thoughts. Imagine ants coming out of your nose right now. And you're like, ooh. And you feel something, right? Here's the key to a good memory. Information combined with emotion becomes a long-term memory. I'll say it again. Information combined with emotion becomes a long-term memory. We remember things that touch us emotionally. We forget the things that are boring. In fact, if you forgot a lot of things back in school, that's why. Because the 2 states of mind that most people feel in school, I could tell you, it's boredom, and the other half of the class is confused. And so if you feel bored, that on a scale of 0 to 10, that's 0. Anything times 0 is 0. So you want to add emotion into it. And so imagine ants coming out of your nose. You're like, ooh, that's why you remember it, okay? The third key to unlocking your super brain is what? It's this thing called, do you remember it? Good, exercise. And the third place on your body is what? Your mouth. So I want you to imagine your mouth exercising. Like maybe you're doing push-ups or pull-ups with your mouth. So silly, it would never happen. That's why you remember it. It's about taking the ordinary and making it extraordinary inside your mind. Extraordinary mind. All right, good. So that's number 3. Number 4 are your what? Your ears, right? The 4th place. And out of your ears, I want you to remember the 4th key to unlocking your super brain, which are brain nutrients. Brain nutrients. So I want you to imagine all these brain vitamins coming out of your ears, right? Your B vitamins, your omegas, your nootropics coming out of your ears. Good. The 5th place on your body is what? It's your throat or your larynx. And I want you to remember that this place here is your positive peer group. Positive peer group. So I just want you to imagine your throat and your positive friends are all lined up and they're putting happy smiley stickers all over your throat. All right? And you're like, that would never happen. That's why you remember it. That's number 5. And by the way, we're halfway through the list, and do we remember even number 1? On the top of your head is what? It's the what? Good brain diet. Good. Coming out of your nose is what? Ants. Good. Ants are coming out of your nose, killing ants. Out of your mouth is what? What are you doing? Exercise. Good. Number 4, and say it out loud. What's coming out of your ears? Brain vitamins, brain nutrients. Good. And finally, number 5 is what? Your positive peer group, your happy faces. We're halfway there. Number 6 are your what? Your shoulders. And I want you to remember clean environment. Clean environment. Imagine looking to your left and right and somebody's mopping and somebody's sweeping and vacuuming on your shoulders. Clean environment. It would never happen. That's why you remember it. Number 7 is your collar. And I want you to remember there, sleep. Sleep. So I just want you to imagine a hammock on your collar and people sleeping on your collar. And just take a moment. And if you say you can't do it, remember, you want to manage your ants, automatic negative thoughts. Don't fight for your limitations because it's a subconscious program for your supercomputer to make it self-fulfilling. So sleeping on your collar. 8 are your what? Your fingers. And I want you to remember brain protection. So what protects your brain? Helmets. So imagine 10 helmets on your 10 fingers, all right, with your favorite sports team. Helmets. Wear your helmet. Protect your brain. Okay, number what? 9. Number 9 is your what? Your belly. And I want you to remember new learnings. New learnings. So I want you to imagine your belly. You have a bookshelf there. So imagine all of your favorite books on your belly. All your favorite books on your belly, right? And then after that, the last place is your what? It's your seat. It's your rear end. And I want you to remember the last one, stress management. How do you manage stress? Some people meditate. They drink a glass of red wine, they do yoga, whatever. Just picture that on your rear. I don't need to know what you're picturing right now. All right, now, you are the memory expert. You have a super brain. You're on stage, and you need to remember, what are the 10 keys for unlocking my super brain? Let's do it together, because we keep it interactive. Now, you're standing on stage, just walk up and down your body. On the top of your head is what? What's on the top of your head? Say it out loud. Yeah, the food, right? You have your good brain food. On your second place is your nose. What's coming out of your nose?
Ants. So automatic negative thoughts.
Yeah, get rid of killing those ants. Kill those ants as they come out of your nose. The third thing is your what? Is your mouth. And then what are you doing with your mouth? You're doing exercise. Good, exercise, very good. After that, your ears. What's coming out of your ears? You have all those brain vitamins, very good, brain vitamins. Number 5 is your throat or your larynx. Who's putting happy stickers on there? You're all your positive friends, right? Positive peer group, good. 6 on your shoulders. What's happening on your shoulders?
Clean environment.
Yeah, clean environment, good. And number 7, on your collar, you have a hammock to remind you of what?
Healthy sleep.
Yeah, healthy sleep. And number 8 are your fingers. What's on your fingers? What are on your fingers? You have these helmets, right? To remind you of brain protection. 9 is your belly. What's on your belly? You have all those books, right? You have all your books, and that's new learnings. And finally, number 10 is your rear end, and what are you doing back there? That's stress management.
Right.
But notice, by the way, people could do it also backwards also as well. Because a trained memory can do something forwards and it can do it backwards. You could go from stress management to what's on your belly, new learnings, and so on.
I can immediately see an application for this at meetings, right? When I have to remember a list, or even when I'm about to give a speech and not be able to toss away the piece of paper that so many people hold.
Because sometimes when you need to give a speech, you don't need to do it verbatim like actors do. You want it to sound natural, but you just want to remember your key points because you know this, Vishen. Somebody asks you a question and you go there to answer the question, you're like, oh, where was I? And you lose your place. With this, you could just like, oh, I was right here. And then it keeps your place. So this memory method, again, is called loci. And it's a 2,500-year-old technique, and it's something very simple. What you can do right now is you could just imagine yourself in your home, standing in the doorway, and you notice a lot of stuff. You're like, Jim, I should have cleaned before I watched this master class. But notice, you're like, okay, the first place is the microwave, second place is the stovetop, the third place is the refrigerator, the fourth place is the dishwasher, the fifth place is the sink. And Then you go in the next room, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, do the same thing, and all of a sudden you could put your to-do list. You could put the facts you need to remember about a client, right?
Now, can you use the same loci for multiple lists?
Absolutely, you could reuse it because your brain separates it by time. And also, you could also make new lists. You could go to your office. You could go to the home you grew up in as a child.
Wow, and this is all based on the fact that as we evolved, our brains had pattern recognition for spaces.
Yeah. We store information around us in time.
Jim, that is fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that information with us. That is so useful. And sometimes these ideas sound simple, but the applications in your life, they are so amazing. Like I shared with the audience earlier about how Jim's memory technique for faces and names changed the way I now do seminars. I remember faces so much easier when that used to be like one of my difficulties. So at this point, guys, I want to invite you to check out the Super Brain Quest by Mindvalley. This is the new Quest. It's a 30-day program that we're doing with Jim Kwik. 2,000 of you are going to enroll together, and every day for 30 days, Jim is going to take you on an adventure to improve your learning ability. You're going to learn an advanced technique every single day for 30 days, and things get stacked on one another. So at the end of 30 days, the way you function as a human being completely shifts. It boosts your career, it boosts your performance at work. It changes the way you function in the world because every single day you have so much more energy. And there's information below. As a reward for watching this masterclass, you can enroll and you actually unlock a special discount only available on this page as a thank you for investing the last couple of minutes with us. Jim, I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about Superbrain and why this program is so important to you.
Okay, so a lot of people know that I grew up with learning challenges, learning difficulties, and it's if you didn't go through that, it's really hard to imagine what it's like to struggle for all those years. And so for me, when I learned how to compensate and going from below normal to maybe super level, I can't help but help other people. My whole thing is no brain left behind. No brain left behind. And your brain is your most valuable supercomputer. It is your superpower between your ears, this 3-pound matter that could really, it influences your health, it influences your career, it influences your relationships, your finances, everything that you hold dear. But it doesn't come with an owner's manual. So we created this Quest program just for you. And the reason why I'm so passionate about this is when I first learned these skills 25 years ago and I started teaching it, my very first student, she read 30 books in 30 days and remembered it all because she had a super brain. And you're thinking like, wow, that's amazing. How can you do that? And I wanted to ask her the same thing. Not how she did it. I know how she did it. I want to know why. Okay, because I find motivation is key to learning. Motivation is key. What is your motive to learn new things? In fact, what benefits would you get for going through this quest? How many better decisions can you make? How much more money can you make? How enriched can you make your health? And I wanted to find out for her what her motivation was. And I found out that her mother was dying of terminal cancer. Terminal cancer, was given 60 days to live, just 2 months to live by doctors. And the books she was reading were books to save her mother's life. Books on health, books on wellness, and it was amazing because I said, I'll say prayers and thoughts, and and I don't know what else I could do to be able to support you in this. She was like, Jim, I'm going to use everything I learned in this program to be able to apply, to learn all this stuff to help her. And 6 months later, I get a call from this young lady, and she's crying and crying and crying, and I can't get a word out of her. And I find out they're tears of joy, that her mother not only survived, but is really getting better. She's starting to thrive. Doctors don't know how, they don't know why. They call it a miracle, but her mother attributed 100% to the great advice she got from her daughter, who learned it from all these books. And that's where I realized that if knowledge is power, learning is your superpower. And it's a superpower that we not only desire, but we really deserve. The world deserves more of us to be able to show up, and it shows up when we show up, specifically in our mind.
Jim, that's fantastic. What an incredible story. Now, I'd love for you to share with them some of the tools and the techniques that you've put into this program to give us this superpower.
Yeah, and so what we understand is that people lose focus after a little bit of time. So we made this program specifically about 15 to 20 minutes because they call it the Pomodoro technique, that after about 20, 25 minutes, our focus dips drastically. And so I always recommend people when they study or when they work to work in those bite-sized chunks because it's digestible. And the key to really making big transformation is consistency and challenge. consistency and challenge. You can't go to the gym once and just be fit, right? You have to be consistent about it. But you also have to challenge yourself because your mental muscles grow through challenge. But what makes consistency and challenge better is a third C, which is coaching. Coaching. The best in the world have a coach. You know, the best singers have a voice coach. The best business people have a business coach, right? You have your health and fitness coach. I want to be your super brain coach. I want to be your personal trainer for your most valuable asset in the world, which is your brain. Remember we started this conversation saying if you could learn any subject or skill faster, what would it be? Just like asking a genie, you would ask for more wishes. The closest thing that would give you more wishes is learning how to learn. And that's what this program is all about. It's about bite-sized lessons every single day for 30 days to change your habit completely. Because first you create this habit of having a super brain, and then it creates you right back. And so every single day is very specifically designed to jumpstart your brain so you can jumpstart your day, so you could have better focus, so you can have greater productivity. And so this is what we focus on. We do lessons on, for example, how to have focus when you read, because readers are readers, right? But people can't remember what they read. How do you remember what you read? We do lessons, for example, on how to learn another language. A lot of people, they want to learn a second or third language. Maybe they're doing international business. Maybe they want to travel abroad. How do you learn that language 200 or 300% faster? And so again, stay to the end of this because we're going to show you a very small clip of what you're going to get and how to remember names, because remembering names and faces is critical. I mean, just forgetting someone's name could kill a sale or hurt a relationship. So let's say you walk into a room and you have conversations with people, but a lot of people, they forget the conversations. And they're like, oh, I forgot what I needed to do. I forgot what I needed to say. And so these memory lapses, what happens is, I believe two of the most costly words in your life are I forgot. I forgot. I forgot to do it. I forgot to bring it. I forgot that conversation. I forgot that meeting. I forgot that anniversary. I forgot that person's name. Every single time you say those words to yourself, you lose time, you lose productivity, you lose credibility, and you lose income also, an opportunity. And so my goal with this program is really to fix your forgetfulness, is to be able to clear the mental fog, is to be able to get rid of that fatigue so you could show up the way you're supposed to be able to show up. And we call that your super brain. Because yes, it's going to teach you to memorize anything that you want to be able to memorize, but not just memorize it, to really understand it so you could apply it easily and effectively. If you're watching this now, you're a special person. You've gotten to the end. You are a completer, right? And so I want to give you mad respect, and I appreciate it because that's how people learn, because you have to show up. But the other thing you have to do is you have to take action and play full out. So if you want to join this program, the reason why I'm so excited about it, yes, you remember facts, figures, foreign languages, and all that information. You have a youthful brain that it really could have so much impact on your productivity, your performance, your peace of mind, your profitability. But also the other things you want to remember besides those are three things. You want to remember your loved ones, right? One of my reasons why I'm doing this is my grandmother had Alzheimer's. And when she passed away when I was a young child, she didn't even remember my name, and she didn't even recognize me. And growing up with those kind of, my inspiration really was my desperation, because I was struggling with all these things. And I understand, as a kid, I'm struggling with it, and then I see this, is this genetic? Am I gonna have to realize this? And then what I realized, though, in the research is only 1/3 of your mental potential, your memory, is predetermined by genetics and biology, but 2/3 is completely in your control. And I just came back from doing a program at the Cleveland Clinic, the Center for Brain Health. And in America, that's like the place. They do all the research on Alzheimer's and dementia, and they do the best caregiving. And I was there training their doctors, their caregivers, their patients on how to have this super brain through prevention, right? All the things you could do now so you don't have to deal with those things later. And so you want to remember your loved ones. The second L you want to be able to remember why super brain is so important is your life, Because if your life is worth living, it's worth remembering. And most people, they don't remember those moments, those magical moments that really affected them. They don't even remember what they had for breakfast, and that's not normal. So I want to be able to fix that so you can remember your life. Bruce Lee said the key to immortality is first living a life worth remembering. So you have your loved ones, you have your life. The third thing I would say, the reason you have a super brain, is to remember your lessons. Your lessons. There's this quote about insanity, and I'm sure you've heard it a million times, is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And that's, for me, is like you going around learning how you've always been learning. It's like, why would you do that? We grew up with a 20th century education that hasn't changed in like 200 years. It was cookie cutter, one size fits all, everyone's the same, don't talk to your neighbor. But we live in an age of electric cars and spaceships that are going to Mars, but our vehicle of choice when it comes to learning is like a horse and buggy.
Right.
And people they don't learn that way. And so how do you make it more active? And I would say is, insanity is that same thing. Why read the same way you're reading and getting sleepy and your mind wanders? Why keep on forgetting names? Why doing the same path? And someone told me, we were talking about this, like, Jim, that's not insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. That's the result of a poor memory, because you're not remembering the lessons. So how many people watching make the same mistakes in their relationship, or they date the same person because they're not remembering the lesson from the previous lesson? Or maybe they're making the same financial mistakes, they're repeating that over and again. Or they're making the same health mistakes, they're eating the same bad foods, they're not working out, because you don't remember the lessons. And so part of having a super memory, or a super brain, if you will, is just keys are just being a better person, meaning care about a person, you remember their name, and also be present. So this is the art of memory, is the art of attention. If you feel like you're distracted, you don't have the focus in your life, you can't get things done, you come home at night and your to-do list, you didn't even get anything checked off, and you're wondering what happened, and you want the opposite, you want to come home and you want to come fresh and you want to be confident. You're like, someone says, how was your day? You're like, I crushed it. And part of that comes from unlocking this thing called your super brain. It is your greatest gift for yourself, for your family, for your work, and for the world.
Thank you, Jim. So ask yourself this question, right? How much would it be worth to you if you could automatically remember what you needed to say? If you were giving an important speech, if you were getting on stage because you have this super brain, what would it be worth to you if you woke up every morning and you knew exactly what to do to train your brain to function at higher levels of processing so that you are smarter throughout the day? What would it be worth to you to have greater brain health so you reduce the odds of age-related diseases impacting your brain? What would it be worth to you to be able to remember names and faces better so that everybody remembered you as that person that made them feel important? What would it be worth to you to be able to become so sharp in terms of your idea generation, your memory, that immediately your performance at work goes up? Your career starts rising, your salary starts going up. What would it be worth to you to be able to have a better vocabulary and to be able to remember languages better so you can pick up the next language? I'm actually about to go in a course to study Estonian, which is the language from the country where my wife is born. And I've been afraid to take this course, but I'm taking Superbrain, and then I'm taking my Estonian course as soon as I'm done with Superbrain. What would it be worth to you to be able to remember numbers better? Facts, figures, data. What would it be worth to you to be able to read at twice the rate and remember information at twice the rate? That alone makes this program worth so much.
Yeah, I think that session alone, that one day out of the 30-day plus,
right,
is worth it alone.
And for those of you who are new to Mindvalley, know that Mindvalley, it doesn't just bring you the best teachers. Jim obviously is the guy who's training all of these incredible people around the world. Just check out his Instagram. But we also have what is perhaps the most sophisticated learning platform in the world. When you go in this program, we don't let you sit behind and not practice it. Our completion rates for our program are up to 500% better than traditional online courses. And this is through the Quest methodology, where you're going on a 30-day journey, a 30-day transformation with 2,000 other students. We all start on the same day, and every day you get coached by Jim for 10 to 20 minutes. Every day, and each day stacks up. And then you get access to a community where all 2,000 students are sharing ideas and insights, and that is so inspiring. People actually make friends in this community, and we've seen people travel to other countries to visit friends that they make. Now, combining all of this, the micro-learning, the platform, the community with the technology, you can access this on Apple TV. You can literally, it comes with an Apple TV app as a bonus. It comes with an iPad app, an Android app, and an iPhone app. And you can also, of course, watch this on Mindvalley Home on your desktop as well. So there's no excuse. You can listen to this when you're on the road. And all of that is just a bonus. What you will see is that at the end of 30 days, you experience a massive shift. Now, we're so confident about this, Jim, that we are able to promise this to our students. If you even have the slightest bit of hesitation, jump on this, because not only are you going to get one of the best pricing out there, this program is worth, because it's a coaching program, it's worth upwards of $1,000. But if you look at the pricing below this page, you'll see the massive discount you're getting. And we're going to let you try it out for the first 10 days completely at no risk. You can enroll anytime now. You can continue into the program, and anytime before day 11, shoot one email to our award-winning customer support team, support@mindvalley.com, and you get your full money back. So you can try out this program, first 10 days, and if it doesn't meet your highest expectations, no worries, no questions asked, your full money back. We're that confident. Do you know less than 5% of everybody enrolls actually takes that? Because the quality of what we produce is at a whole different level. So all the information's in below. Go ahead and enroll, and we'll see you in the Superbrain Quest. Now, I want to share with you, with the audience, a couple of other really exciting things. This program is coming with a number of different bonuses. When you enroll today, you get bonus 1, which is Jim training you on how to overcome procrastination. Jim, why is this important?
Well, a lot of us are going out there, we're trying to achieve things, but we put things off. I mean, if you're not getting the things that you need to get done when you need to get it done, then you're not being effective. And there's a difference between being a thermostat and a thermometer. A thermometer is just something that reacts to the environment and responds to the environment. But a thermostat is different. It sets a standard, it sets a vision, it sets a goals, and you have a lot of tasks to be able to accomplish. And then all of a sudden the environment rises to be able to meet that. And if you're watching this, I see you as a thermostat and not a thermometer because you're making things happen. So this bonus is worth the entire course alone, because if you can't get things done, then you're in a prison. So I teach you the 5 keys to smash procrastination so you get things done and get it done quickly.
And that's just one of several bonuses. You also get a second bonus, which is called your 8 C's to muscle memory. Tell us about that.
So this is a really fun bonus. A lot of people, like when we're talking about memory, it's about logical, cerebral things. But what about people who want to learn new dance or a martial arts or a new exercise, of physical movements? And so this is going to fast track your results and shortcut your results to be able to get things in your body so you can learn things like aerobics or dance.
Or dance moves, or Zumba, or martial arts. That's so funny. And then the third bonus is the one I'm waiting for most, because remember when Jim started this masterclass, he told you that the first thing he does when he wakes up is remember his dreams. And I'm thinking, I've been trying to remember my dreams for 3 decades. So the third bonus is on remembering your dreams. How about that?
Because remember, you're coming up with creative solutions for your problems, you're integrating these things, coming up with inventions and incredible things for your business. But if you're forgetting it first thing in the morning, then you're at a huge disadvantage. So I'm going to show you the 6 keys for remembering all your dreams.
So stay tuned, because we're going to give you a bonus snippet from this quest on remembering faces. But first, we know that when we are unrolling a quest like this, there are 4 common questions that people ask, right? And Jim, I want you to spend just a minute or so just addressing these questions. The first one is, who is this quest for?
Okay, so this quest is for 2 kinds of people. The people that we tend to attract are people either who are struggling. They're struggling and they're suffering. They're wondering why they're working so hard, but they're not getting quite the results that they show up. And it doesn't matter if you're a student, a senior, an educator, or an entertainer, a CEO, or a celebrity, or anyone between. It's for anyone who has a brain that they feel like there's more, that you feel like there's a specialness inside of you. You just haven't been able to unlock it. That's the program for you. The other kind of people who join this quest are the people who are already successful. They're mega successful, the kind of clients that I work with, and they want that edge. They want that advantage because people are working really hard to take them off the top, and they want to be able to sustain their success over time. Not just attain it, but sustain it. So it doesn't matter. This will work for you regardless of your age, your background, your career, your diet. This was designed for everybody that has a brain that wants to make it super.
Now, the second thing is, how fast do you see results?
Okay, so this is the exciting part, okay? Even from the first few days, you could get a major result. And you won't, it's so interesting. One different idea might not seem like a big shift, but over time, let's say 30 days, you have reached a certain different destination or a destiny. So little shifts don't seem like a lot, but over 30 days, it's very big. So the little things that you learn, even in the first 10 days, will absolutely transform your life. It's really about transcending. Transcending, which is ending the trance. Ending the trance that you're not good enough, that you're not smart enough, that you're too old, or you have the genetics. This will give you that advantage.
And I can attest to that, because just one conversation with this man shifted the way I remember faces and names. And you're going to learn that, 10 minutes. So the next question is, how much time commitment will this involve?
Okay, so the time commitment, this is the best part. It's bite size. If you don't have 10 or 20 minutes to be able to make your life easier, then this program is not for you. Or you should probably buy 2 of them because you really need this program. But this is for you or your family if you want to be able to make more time. Because being more efficient and be able to remember things, where you put things, a lot of people actually waste an incredible amount of time. Where did I put this? Where's the meeting? They lose all this track. It only takes about 10 or 20 minutes to be able to get these kind of results every single day.
And finally, I want to just add this. This program is 10 to 20 minutes a day, which is the methodology we use for Quest. But this program, after the first week itself, it's adding time to your life.
Yeah.
I can attest to this. It's adding time because you operate at such a higher level of efficiency that you buy back your life. It's incredible when you think about it that way. And I also want to state this, and I'm going to make a very important promise here. I set a goal at Mindvalley with our team that every program we put out would have to be the singular best program in the world of its type. And we engineered this program with Jim, who I believe is the single greatest coach in this genre. And we put it on the Mindvalley Quest platform, which I believe is the single best learning platform in this field. But our promise is, if you do not feel this is the single greatest learning program out there, get a full refund. And I want you to compare it to other programs of an equivalent type where they are being sold for $2,000. You will find learning programs out there on improving your learning capacity which are $2,000. I'll make a promise. This will beat those programs. The reason we charge a tiny fraction of that cost is because one of Mindvalley's other aims is to touch 1 billion lives. And we know that not everybody can afford a $2,000 program. We want to give you something that you can afford because we know that every single person who buys this program, every mom, every dad, every boss, every manager, you're going to be teaching these techniques to your team members, to your kids. Imagine what would happen if your children learn this. So when you buy this program, you are also gaining the ability to teach others. So I want you to invest in this program and compare it to any program in speed learning, even $2,000 or $10,000 programs. And if this isn't better than those, get a full refund in the first 10 days, right? And you'll still learn a ton of things in the first 10 days. Our aim is to produce the very best in the world, the de facto standard that we're getting out to schools and companies all across the world. And I believe in this, man. So all of that information is below. Go ahead and enroll in Superbrain by Jim Kwik and Mindvalley. And now, Jim, let's give the audience that bonus piece of content that we promised. But first, do you have any final closing words?
I want to thank you for watching this masterclass because if you're still watching this, you're a special soul. And I'm often quoted with this saying that compares your life to an egg, that if an egg is broken by an outside force, life ends. But if it's broken by an inside force, life begins. And all great things begin on the inside. And you have genius inside of you, and you have greatness inside of you, and it's time to let it out.
Thank you, Jim. And now we're going to give you that special bonus content on remembering names and faces. And while waiting, I encourage you to enroll directly in this masterclass.
I really want to anchor this subject down because I think if there's one skill to master nowadays in business and networking, when you're going to all these conferences and such, is your ability to remember people's names. Because it is impossible to show that you care for somebody if you don't care enough just to remember their name, right? So people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And it's impossible to show someone you're going to care for their health, their finances, their family, their future, anything that's important to them, if you don't just care enough to remember their name, right? Maya Angelou said, people will forget what you say, they'll forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And a name's the sweetest sound to a person's ears. And so many people tell me they're so embarrassed, they're so forgetful. They feel so bad when they have to ask for a person's name 2, 3, 4 times. And so let's fix that. Let's fix this forgetfulness right now. I'm going to teach you a method on how to remember the names and faces of almost every single person that you meet. And that's extraordinary, right? And so we want to take you from zero to memory hero during this lesson. So let's get started. First of all, I want you to remember mom. We covered this earlier, we covered mom, but I want you to just remember motivation, observation, and mechanics. The motivation is wanting to remember a person's name. So ask yourself, why do I want to remember this person's name? Because if you don't come up with one reason, you're not going to remember that person's name. Come up with one or two reasons. I want to practice these techniques. I want to show the person respect. I want to make a new friend. I want to do some business. Couple of reasons will help elevate your motivation and you're more likely to remember it. The O is just observation. It's not your retention, it's your attention. Pay attention. Listen for the person's name. A lot of you aren't forgetting the person's name, you're just not really listening. Remember, listen, scramble, that word becomes the word silent. So just pay attention. And finally, the other M in mom stands for mechanics, and that's what I'm gonna give you right now. The mechanical skills, step by step on how to remember names. So I want you to remember this. Next time you're out and about at some social function, at a wedding, at a networking event, at a fest, one of these conferences, summit, these kind of gatherings, what you want to do is do this. Look in the mirror, and as you're checking your clothes or your makeup or anything else, I want you to say to yourself, I am going to be suave. Be suave. Remember, be suave. And this is what it stands for. The B stands for believe. Because if you believe you can or believe you can't, either way, what? You're right. Who said that? Henry Ford said that, right? That's the power of a belief. So you want to eliminate the negative self-talk. Every time you say, I'm not going to remember names or my memory is so horrible, you don't want to say that. Replace it with something more empowering. The E in Be Suave stands for exercise. And I don't mean physical exercise, although we talked about people who are more physically active will do better at mental acuity tests, they have better focus, and they'll have a better memory. Because anything good for your heart is going to be good for your head. But I mean practice when I say exercise. Practice makes progress, practice makes permanent, right? And so you want to be able to practice what you're about to learn. Now, suave, this is the actual technique. When you meet somebody, the first thing I want you to do is the S, and you say the person's name. You meet someone named Ted, and you say, Ted, it's nice to meet you, right? So it's, hi, my name is Ted, and you say, Ted, it's nice to meet you. How many times did you hear it? You heard it twice. Once from the person, once when you repeated it. The other reason why I ask you to say it is because I want to make sure, going back to the O in mom, that you observed it correctly. You don't want to have a 20-minute conversation with Ted and say goodbye, Ed, right? Because you want to get corrected right at the beginning. The U in suave stands for use the name. Use the name in the conversation. But notice it's use, it's not abuse, right? You want to put an A and a B in front of it, that would be abuse. An abuse would be, Ted, it's great to meet you. Ted, you want to grab some lunch. Ted, what do you want to cover today? Ted, Ted, Ted. That's an abuse. But you want to use it 3 or 4 times in the context of the conversation. The A in suave stands for ask. Because what's everyone's favorite subject? It's not travel, it's not food, it's not entrepreneurship. What is it? It's themselves, right? Remember, the name is the sweetest sound to a person's ears. The ask is really good also when you meet somebody and their name is a little bit different than what you're used to. Maybe you're hearing a name for the first time, so you could ask about a person's name. What can you ask about a person's name? How do you spell it? Where is it from? Who are you named after? Are you related to this person, right? Does it mean something in another language? You could ask all these probing questions. And remember, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And asking about a name is so important. And I remember I was doing this training at the country's largest life insurance company. And it was about 100 people in the room, and the training director's name was Nankita. Nankita. And I was like, wow, that's a beautiful name. Where is it from? How do you spell it? And I said, what does it mean? And she paused. I was like, Nankita, what does it mean? And she looked at her coworkers and she said, it means graceful falling waters. And I was like, wow, that's really beautiful. And notice how her coworkers were reacting when she said that. I said, Nikita, how long have you worked here? She's like, 4 or 5 years. She was like, with people here? She's like, yeah, a lot of people are my friends. They were at my wedding. And I asked the audience, I said, how many people in this room knew that's what her name meant? And out of 100 plus people, how many people raised their hand? 0. 0. Right? And we had an incredible bond because remember, a name, think about the emotion connected to someone's name. It's probably one of the very first words you learned how to write for yourself, and how much reinforcement, how much encouragement, how much love were you given when you wrote your name, right? So it's very tender, it's like your identity, right? And so I ask about a person's name. And then finally, the V and the E in suave. The V stands for visualize. How many people are better with faces than they are with names? It's like everybody, right? You go to someone and you say, I remember your face, but I forgot your name. You never go to someone and say the opposite. You never go to someone and say, hey, I remember your name, but I forgot your face. You don't say that, right? Because you tend to remember what you see. There's a Chinese proverb that goes, what I hear, I forget. What I see, I remember. What I do, I understand. What I hear, I forget. I heard the name, forgot the name. What I see, I remember. I saw their face, I remember their face. What I do, I understand. Going back to exercise and practice. Practice makes progress, right? So what do you do when you want to visualize someone's name? It's simple. All you do is when you receive the name, turn that name into a picture. Turn into a picture, because we remember what we see. And if you tend to remember what you see, then just see what you want to remember inside. So, for example, if a person's name is Mary, when I say the word Mary, what could remind you of the word Mary? Mary, someone getting married, right? Imagine you're meeting Mary for the first time, and just imagine she's in a wedding dress and you're getting married, right? And would you remember that? Of course you would. And so when you say goodbye to Mary later on, you'll remember that too. Maybe it's not a wedding dress, maybe Mary had a little lamb. So imagine meeting Mary for the first time and she's getting punch at the punch bowl and she has two arms. Her arms, underneath her arms are two lambs. Mary had a little lamb. She has two lambs underneath her arms. And you're like, well, that's so childish. Who are the fastest learners on the planet? Children. And children make fun of names, right? They'll take someone's name and they'll repeat it and they'll rhyme it, they'll do all these things. That's how children learn names, right? They're fast learners. And so I would say, remember Mary had a little lamb. When you say goodbye to her, oh, what was she doing? She was holding those lambs. What's her name? Her name is Mary. If a person's name is Mark, what can you picture? Person's name is Mark. Just imagine you're putting a little check mark on their forehead. Mark introduces himself and you just put a little check mark on his forehead. That reminds you, and by the way, this is in the privacy of where? This is in the privacy of your own mind. You're not sharing this with Mark, right? Just a little check mark. And you wouldn't do that. And if it makes you laugh or something like that, that's why you remember it. Now, by the way, when you're out and about, I don't see everything like lambs and check marks and everything else like that. What happens is after you remember the person's name, then the picture disappears. But I ask you to do this method, this visualization method, because it overcomes what I call the 6-second syndrome. 6-second syndrome is this. Somebody gives you their names. You have 6 seconds to do something with that name, otherwise what happened? It'll just disappear. So if a person's name is Mike, what could you picture? Someone singing on a microphone. Imagine you meet someone named Mike and all of a sudden they jump on the table and singing karaoke on a microphone. You won't forget that. It's visual, it's imaginative. When you say goodbye, oh, that was the guy singing bad karaoke. What's his name? Mike, right? And so a person's name is Carol, you could picture what? Somebody caroling, right? If a person's name is John, you could picture what? whatever you picture. So the idea here is visual, you make a picture of it, put it on the person. And finally, the E in Be Suave stands for end. What does that mean? That means saying goodbye, ending the conversation using their name, right? Ted, it's nice to meet you. John, have a great day. This is what it does, because if you could walk into a room and meet 20 strangers and leave saying goodbye to every single one of them by name, who are they all going to remember? They're all going to remember you, and that's a standout skill. Okay, so here's your quick review. Remember MOM and Be Suave. Motivation, observation, mechanics. And what's the Be Suave? B stands for what? Say it out loud. Believe. Believe you can, believe you can't. Either way, you're right. The E is exercise, practice, because practice makes what? Practice makes progress. The S in Suave stands for say the name. You say the name when you hear it. The U in Suave is you use it 3 or 4 times in the conversation. The A in Suave is ask. Everyone loves being asked about themselves. It's the favorite subject. How do you spell it? Where is it from? What does it mean? Ask about a person's name. The V stands for visualize. We tend to remember what we see, then try seeing what you want to remember. Take a name like David. For me, David, I use a slingshot. I just hit the person, David, in the eyes with a slingshot in the privacy of my own mind, in my imagination, not in reality. Why do I use a slingshot for David? David and Goliath. For Bob, I use apples. Bobbing for what? Apples, right? You can come up with so many. And that's going to be your homework. Finally, the E stands for end. You end the conversation using their name. So what's your homework assignment? Really simple. I want you to practice taking names and turning them into a picture. Now, the best way I can imagine doing this is go online for your country and look at the top names for your census, right? Maybe it's the top baby names, maybe it's the top male names, female names. And what I want you to do is practice taking each name and turn it into a picture. And here's the really smart thing. When you do that, for example, in the United States, if I take the top 100 names as males, if I come up with a picture for every single one of them, like, John is a toilet, and David is a slingshot, and Bob is apples. If I do the first 100 names, I have pictures for 60% of the male population in the United States. If I do it for females in the United States, for example, the top 100 female names, I'll actually have 40% of the US population already done. And so what I want you to do is go online for your country, come up with the top 100 names that are most used, and you might as well practice with them because those are the most used names. Practice turning them into pictures. So what I want you to do is when you have those list of names is sharing and teach it to other people, because when you teach something, you get to learn it twice. So go into our community and share it with the tribe. Find your favorite names in your country and practice and share with everybody what your word pictures are for those names.
Thank you so much, Jim. It was an honor to have you. This man is about to get on stage at A-Fest and speak to this massive audience of celebrities and CEOs about getting into genius states of consciousness. Good luck with that. And I can't wait to see you guys in the Super Brain Quest, where you're going to be coached by Jim Kwik to get your mind and your brain to a whole different level in 30 days.
I wish your days be full of lots of life, lots of laughter, lots of love, and always lots of learning. I'll see you inside.